Right, good evening, gentlemen. Just going through the agenda then. Apologies for absence.
I haven't had any.
No. Is it on the list there? Are we all here?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Can't be. Declarations of interest from anybody?
Yes, I've got to declare that I'm a trustee of Chat and also a trustee of the Museum Trust.
Right, and I'm supposed to be the trustee of the museum.
My next door neighbour is she is the secretary of the museum.
Okay, the museum, okay.
Music trustee.
Yeah.
I'm
You're clear on this occasion.
no longer a trustee of the museum because
Okay.
you've taken over as mayor, so I'm not.
So what did you say, Councillor Stein?
My next door neighbour, I think they call her the secretary, it may not be, but anyway, she does all these, she's the one who was writing to you.
Right, okay.
Well, that was a bit nasty, but did you get
Yeah,
the gist of it?
yeah.
Yeah. Right, representations from interested parties. Is there anybody else in the room? Consideration of requests from interested parties. We don't have any. Right, minutes of the previous meeting then. So, I think who was there was Councillor Hutton, myself, Councillor Sparks and Councillor Glenn.
All right, I'll propose them.
Okay, proposed and seconded. So, that one, okay.
You haven't asked if we're all in favour yet.
All those in favour?
Formality, wasn't it? I know it's just signing.
Okay. Right, into the complex bit then. So the first item we got in financial matters then is to receive the balance sheet, budget account and hub trading account for March and April.
The March one, you'd already seen that
But there've been some changes, haven't there?
yeah, we had to make a change to reflect the asset register
Right, what was the change? Why was it having to be done?
because the asset register was updated and approved at the May meeting,
Okay, it's about £4,000, isn't it? It's not a huge
Yeah.
amount, yeah. All right,
and our internal auditor said we had to change it.
right, okay.
So it's formality then, really. It's all.
So that was
it's
so we
all-
updated
it's
it.
We've approved it effectively.
Yeah,
and
you've already seen
then a
everything else.
minor change. So yeah. So I don't think there's any issue there. Then, is there?
No.
Any other issues raised?
Yes, I think there are. I'll go with the hub.
All right.
The hub trading account is... We've really got to sort out what it's really losing us, I think. It says 14,000 last year, but we're losing up to £3,500, nearly £4,000 some months. I go in there, and like today, I was the only customer, and there's at least 3 people serving. You know, it's daft. I don't know, how's the rota being?
I am working with Hannah.
Okay, but I went in there the other day, there were 10 people, and there seemed to be 4 staff.
I am working with her.
Yeah, but that's the key to getting this down.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there should be more than 2 staff on at any one time. You may not like that, and preferably 1. You know, when it's
But
not
we've talked
busy.
about it today, actually.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's hope it improves, because I do think that I would like to see proper accounts showing the other costs we've got.
The other costs
Waste, things that Roy came up with when he did the
being, what
other.
were they?
Yeah. Right.
All the overheads for the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we've already
Electricity.
agreed, either in this meeting of States or full council, that the facility, the rooms, you know, are not classed as an overhead of the hub. They are a facility open to the general public, and whether the hub is there or not, those will be, you know, costs that we incur. As I
No, hang on, I'm talking about the hub.
But you can say
Yeah.
that about
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just talking about, first off, the rooms.
Okay.
2 rooms where people sit and drink tea. That isn't part of the overhead that is allocated to the hub, because
Okay.
they exist whether we have a cafe there or not.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, they could exist for some other use There's
They
other
could,
opportunity
yeah.
costs there, and you're ignoring those. And
No, I'm not ignoring it, I'm reflecting on a conversation that we'd already had about it.
when did you have that conversation?
It goes back over 6 months ago. Yeah,
Okay.
but we did have that
I do
conversation.
understand that.
Yeah,
That argument. What I don't understand is things like electricity, the wastage that comes out of here, somebody has to take it away,
yeah,
those sort of things.
okay.
I
No,
do
no,
think we
that's
should be
good.
looking
The
at those.
operating costs. I
The
think,
operating
quite
costs,
right, yeah. So, I've had a conversation with Emma, and, we will, carry on with this plan to get the hub into a much better position than it is today.
Okay.
Staff, we all know, are the key to turning the place around. And we have seen some months last year where the staff numbers were particularly low for various reasons. The hub started making a profit.
Yes.
Yes, that's what we've got to do with it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So, John? Yeah.
Forgive me if I got this wrong, but whilst I was away, I thought I read that we appointed somebody specific down the hub to run it. Is that correct, or have I got
We
it
have a
wrong?
team leader, not that's the same as we had before.
No,
So
so
two team leaders.
exactly,
Now
we're
we've
down
got
to one, yes. So
Okay.
that this is a person that's accountable now. That's the advantage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Previously, we
So-
had two who were just batting it around between themselves.
So
And
my
we've
question
got-
is how accountable? What is that? I assume it's a her, is it?
Yeah, I mean, she's new in the role, and she is learning.
So what is her remit? What's her job description that suddenly makes her accountable where people weren't as accountable before?
Nothing in terms of what you're thinking about. So in terms of, she has not had a remit that says she must make the hub profitable. But this is where we want to move to, is somebody who first off, is accountable for staff and the sort of things that Councillor Glenn raises there. Somebody who's responsible for when there is no customers there, it's time to let what were the hourly paid?
Zero,
The 0 hours contract.
which is what she did this afternoon.
Yeah, but to get her, it's an educational route that we need to go through. To
Does
bring her-
she know, is she part of this process?
Yeah, she's meeting with me regularly now.
But she knows where she's going with this, that in 3 or 6 months, or what do we say?
By the end of the year, we said,
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The financial year or the...
financial year.
Yeah.
So you've got to give me another year to turn it round.
Yeah. Right, we've got in that one to see progress. That doesn't mean that
I was going to say,
on month
yeah.
11
Yeah.
that the miracle's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things
I
are
think-
going to happen over the next 2 months.
Yeah, but I think it's worth recognising that there has been progress year on year. I mean, numbers are getting better, and I know people have got different opinions around the table, but there are certainly a number of councillors, possibly even the majority of councillors, that do feel that it's a public facility and it deserves some support.
Yeah.
It's just a case of how much support, isn't it, and understanding that and making sure that we're not we're making good use of ratepayers' money.
I think that's right, but I mean, we do have to have a realistic idea of the cost and then
Yeah.
decide how much
Yeah.
we want to subsidise it.
Absolutely,
no,
yeah,
exactly.
I do agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so apart from the hub, is there anything else in those accounts?
Well, just a quick question. There's lots of negative variances on the month one. I take it that's because of rates coming in. Is it rates bills?
Whereabouts are they?
Under
Are we in
expenditure.
April?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what Paul does is he puts all the rates in.
Yeah, that's what I thought would happen. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. So we all right with that first item then? Do we have to vote on it?
I think it's
Just
received because then
Yeah.
they go to full council to be
Yeah,
approved, but
okay.
obviously this is where we can look at things in a bit more detail.
Is there anything else, Councillor, that I've missed there?
Not one I'm aware of.
Right,
Do you want
okay.
me to check it?
No, it's all right, but there's so many documents in there.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I've not been through them.
No, no, no.
Yeah, okay. So we move on then to the grant requests, and the first one is from the Angle Music Trust. I remember this was a relatively small amount they were after, wasn't it? £1,000.
2,000.
2,000, sorry.
It's quite a lot, it's a lot more than they've had in the past, isn't it?
Yeah,
And they are quite wealthy.
yes, although that, Rowan has said that they have wealthy times, and then when they have things on, that's when a lot of the money goes out.
But I think their retained funds are, what, I don't know, something
End of year reserves were 53,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did they have last year?
They're turning over 245,000, income
Big
245,
business,
expenditure 247.
Music.
Well, it's a good cause, but not the other ones too.
Let's see it on my sheet. I just saw it.
Go on, while I was looking for that then.
Yeah, we give them quite often £1,000 or so. Nothing last year.
Nothing last year.
Oh, sorry, the year before, no, it's £1,000 last
Have you
year.
found, because I'm trying to find the music trust on my list of,
It's about a third of the way up from the bottom.
Just a minute, ping for hesitation.
sorry.
My memory serves me correctly, they've usually asked us for £2,000, Council of Chapel will probably tell me right or wrong. They usually ask for £2,000 and we give them one.
Yeah, it looks like we've done that for the last 3 years, I think.
I think that's what we should do.
My proposal.
I'll second it.
Sorry, just a bit more input. Councillor Chapel.
I was only going to observe that although their balances are very healthy, and it has a larger turnover than any of the other organisations we're ever likely to get a request from.
Yes.
You think in terms of the value to the town of what they do, and therefore to some extent the value to this council of being associated with it, it makes it worth investing in. But I don't do all from the proposition of Councillor Stagg in terms of the amount.
The only thing I would add to that is that I do note that the overall, I'm not specifically talking about the Music Trust now, but just looking at overall the grants that we've awarded in the last few years, they've been quite a lot less than they have been in previous years, and less as a percentage of the precept or total income. And we also did make the point at the public meeting that we haven't actually been spending what we've been budgeting. Certainly last year we didn't. So I'm kind of supporting Councillor Chapel really in saying that, you know, maybe we can actually afford to be a little bit more generous, and it is
I thought we ought to be more.
a significant benefit to the town that what they do.
It is, but they're probably more rewarding. More other charities that need the money more, I would suspect.
Well, they are asking for this money for a specific purpose, aren't they? You know, which is a free afternoon event with teas and so on. You know, so it's not for the commercial side of their operation.
And it's an exceptional year, as they point out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, this year particularly our special as a weekend includes recreation of some peace games which held in 1919. So yeah, I think there's a good reason for maybe this year.
So you're proposing we do it?
I propose that we do the 2,000 for.
Okay.
So that's an amendment to the original proposal.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I've got a proposal of 1,000.
You've got a proposal.
Second.
Yeah.
So
We'll
you're
do a
now-
vote on it.
You're now proposing an
Use the
amendment.
procedure, right? Yeah,
It
we
is an
need-
amendment.
Yeah, so we need to amend the proposal to 2,000.
Then you vote on the
Vote
amendment.
on the amendment first.
Okay, so we have a proposer and a seconder for the amendment. And do we take all those in favour of the amendment? So there's 3 in favour of the amendment. And all those against the amendment? 1 against, 2 against the
I'll
amendment.
abstain.
Right, so the amendment is carried then.
Mhm.
So now in terms of the motion itself,
Well, you don't consider that now. If the amendment is passed,
right, you don't
That's
do
it.
the motion.
yeah,
You see, oh, okay. Right, thank you. So the next one then is for the chat with councillor. I'm certainly impressed by the numbers involved that they've talked to over the year. $133 individuals. Over 700 hours. Councillor Snake.
I'll start by saying that I've served on chat before and I'm fully supportive of it. I'm fully supportive of mental health, especially for young kids.
Yeah.
But it just struck me today that 25% of all we've given away since 2010 has gone to one organisation. Is that right? I wouldn't try it factually, but is it right that it should be like that?
Yep, okay. So they're asking for £3,000 this time. How does that compare to the previous ones?
Last year was 2,310, nothing in 2018, 3,500 in 2017, 16 and 15.
I think I've already declared an interest, but I think one of the reasons why it's difficult for chat to raise money by any other means is because of the kind of service they provide. The people providing the service and the people receiving the service can hardly be seen fundraising for it. Otherwise, everybody knows. Anybody going to them is, you know, what they're there for. So it's very difficult in that sense for them to be involved in raising funds from other means.
They are looking to apply to other places though.
Sorry?
They are looking to apply to other places.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
funding.
Yes, they are. Yes. Yeah.
Well, if I read this correctly, their reserves have gone up from 46,000 to over 50,000 in a year. Is that correct?
Yeah. They're also extending the service over the range of children that they're now helping. So they're trying to help a wider age
So,
range of children.
so their costs are going to go up next year.
Children in Thrapston and beyond, if I read that correctly, I don't quite understand.
I think Thrapston had their own, I believe I'm right in saying this, I believe Thrapston had their own at one time. I think they've had a struggle with it, and I think that is by far the smaller partner of the two. And we do have one trustee who is a councillor from Thrapston Town Council on the board to represent their interests for Thrapston, but that is very much a smaller, but yes, you're absolutely right, yes, it does include the Thrapston area, but the majority of the service is here in Oundle, provided either with facilities at the schools or provided with facilities at the courthouse, is where the majority of it's done.
That's Thrapston Town Council is one of the other places that they're going to apply for funding.
That's one of the ones they're going to apply to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we know if they get any funds at the moment, Thrapston?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. No, I'd have to ask.
So I have a bit of a problem with their numbers as well on the application form. So they have the details of the community project, which roughly looks like £3,000. But then they have the cost of the project at £11,600. They're saying they're asking for 3,000, we shall leave a balance of 5,000. Well, the maths just don't go together somehow. There's something missing from this form.
Sorry.
Just going back to grants, it is in their financial statements. So in 16-17 they had 3,500 from Amble Town Council, 1,500 from Thrapston Town Council, and £600 from ENC councillors. They didn't have anything last year, would it be? Yes? Oh, sorry, 17-18. The councillors, the latest account is 17-18, not 18-19, so we haven't got the latest accounts.
I think they had some, I seem to remember that they had some extra money from somewhere. Because I think it was about the time when we were thinking about reviewing their rent, and I was...
They didn't apply the year that we reduced the rent from £1,000 plus VAT to 600 inclusive of VAT. They didn't apply for a grant that year. I think they missed it.
And how long's their lease for?
I don't believe they have a lease as such, do they?
No, we don't.
No.
So whereas, I don't disagree in principle to what they're asking for, and I believe this course is one of the more expensive ones to operate because it's very manpower heavy. I find it difficult to make a grant based on this document in front of us because the numbers just don't add up on the document.
Well, is it worth then? I mean, also I noticed that, as I say, the accounts are a year out of date. It looks like their AGM is in July, so it looks like in the next couple of weeks they'll present their new account. Is it worth referring it then till we've seen the...
I think it does balance. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry,
No,
that's okay.
I cut you short there.
No, sorry. No, I just have to
Suddenly,
Yeah.
a light suddenly appeared at the end of the tunnel here. You've got this approximate cost of the project, 11,661, which, as you say, is pretty staff intensive because you've got to pay the going rates for councillors. That's councillors.
Yeah.
Not councillors. The amount of funding requested is 3,000. They've said, how will the balance be funded? 5,000 reduction in reserves. So 5,000 is coming from reserves. That's 8,000 of it. And then they've said further applications. So they're applying elsewhere. But what they haven't said is they're implying that they balance it by further applications.
That adds up to 3,000, so my thought is...
Yeah, so why is the project at 11,000 if that only adds up to 3? Yeah, that's my first point, is the stuff in the project, it adds up to 11,000. I think they've missed their staffing costs off that part of the form. If the project's 11,000, we should see a breakdown of the project costs that add up to 11,000.
You're right, we should ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should ask.
So I think, when they get that right, I think that we can reconsider it. I think it would be considered, well, not personally, I would like to consider it favourably.
So would
But
I.
I wouldn't like to do it, pass it on this document.
No, okay.
Because the document isn't complete.
Okay.
Well,
So is the clerk going to then
Well,
write
I
it?
haven't known David's government, Councillor Chappell's government.
Well, I'm not sure that it is incomplete. They request £3,000 and they show exactly where that £3,000 comes from, because it's the courthouse rent we charge them, plus all these other things, their insurance, their BACP membership, etc., which all adds up to £3,000. So essentially what they're saying is, please pay for this lot, which includes waiving our own rent or giving it back to them. Now, I'm not totally convinced by the idea of paying, in effect, charging them a rent and then promptly repaying all of it, particularly when we've just cut the rent dramatically. I would be perfectly happy to grant fund them a figure of, works out at £2,400, which is all the rest of it, save for the rent element, where I think we've already effectively provided support by cutting back on that rent. So I'd be happy to propose that figure.
But you're happy that their explanation then is acceptable to the the auditors.
I find it acceptable. Not sure whether other people do, but I do.
Well, they say the details of the project are this. They put a load of numbers in there and they say approximate cost of the project is a different number. Yes.
I'm less worried about what they say about the cost of the project when they specifically say in the bit above that we are applying to OTC for support for accommodation, governance and training costs and break it down accordingly. I think that's very clear to me. As I say, I'm quite happy to fund those things other than the rent because I think we've already accommodated them.
Okay. Oh, happy to move on with that one rather than go around the loop around again.
The further applications, I think, is where they explain where the difference is, and I think they've probably left it as vague as further applications because A, they haven't made those applications to other people yet. They don't know how much they'll get, and B, they don't know whether we'll give them what they're asking for, in which case they'll need to ask more from other people.
So that line isn't a problem to me.
Right.
That's going to come back to us to ask for more applications.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a proposal on the table then from Councillor Chappell for £2,400. Is there a seconder to that? And I will second that. Yeah. So having a proposal and a seconder, do we have all those in favour of that proposal?
Yeah, but I
Okay.
think they deserve it.
All in favour? Those against?
Well, I'm abstaining because
Right.
I've declared an
You've been
interest.
involved, right? Yes, okay. Is that?
I'm abstaining because
Okay.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Right. Oundle Festival of Literature.
Only asking for 500 on there, it's not a huge amount. I'm not that rich.
Yeah, so these chaps have a much smaller turnover than the music ones, don't they? We've got a project cost of 11,000 and we're requesting 500.
They made a loss last year, so they're sort of useful.
We gave them a grant of 200 last year. It's at the top of
Yeah.
their accounts page here. Do we know what they asked for last year? Did we give them everything they asked for? Or?
Seems right, because of that, I might be misreading.
I suspect we did. Not that that necessarily means I think we should cut this year, but I just wondered why they asked for 200 last year and 500 this year.
I'd like to propose that.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
£500.
So is Councillor Sparks' question still on the table, was it? Did we find out how much they had last year?
Last
Up
year,
to that 200.
We know that much today, but we don't know is how much they
That's full.
without
Okay, we
back
gave
checking
200
it.
then. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a
It,
proposal. we have a
doesn't
second,
matter.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, all those in favour? Right.
What's that? It doesn't matter. I was just interested, you know, in.
I don't know,
No, it's
off the top
why.
of my head, I don't know which month we approved it, so I don't know.
No,
Um,
I couldn't remember what we did, what the reasoning was, and how much they asked for last year. But I was just interested to know why it was 200 last year and 500 this year. They've perhaps got plans for something bigger this year.
I don't quite know how the protocol allows us to do in the next one, but help me through it. The Museum Trust.
As we are appointed by the council to be the trustees, we are precluded from involving ourselves in this. Indeed, it would be pretty nonsensical because it would mean promptly half the committee disqualified. I don't think it was strictly necessary because I think, Councillor Sparks, are you on chat because you're a council representative to chat, or are you?
Yes.
You are.
Yes.
Because I don't think you necessarily needed to absent yourself from that
Well-
last vote on that basis, but
Last night I was at a code of conduct meeting and several things came up, and this is not an issue so long as you tell people beforehand
Okay.
what the position is.
Yeah.
If you then decide you don't want to take part, well, that's up to you, but it doesn't debar you.
have you ever done dispensations?
I don't think we've ever done it, although it crossed my mind as to whether or not in
Yeah.
fact that might be part of a process we could potentially
I know
use.
previous councils, and particularly with the QVH.
Yes, we've done that before.
Well, we certainly do it for QVH because otherwise we'd all disqualify ourselves. We need to a certain amount of inertia, right?
But I don't know, I mean, I've not done any dispensations for anybody for QVH since I've been here.
No.
I think we just did it as a sort of block thing, but I think we should probably do it
But then, yeah,
actually at the annual meeting.
Yeah.
But
While Councillor Stagg is on the matter of talking of code of conduct, I serve on as a parish and town representative, not specifically for Oundle, side of the Joint Standards Complaints Committee, and I know that the monitoring officer would prefer that dispensations were presented to the Standards Committee and granted from there,
Yeah.
rather than councils doing their own.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that
I've
what we're doing is
never
wrong,
done it
but-
any other way,
No.
other than going through the monitoring officer.
yeah, yeah.
I've never done
Most
it
places
any other
do.
way. Mm.
We've had them come up where councillors have, they would not be able to conduct business on a small parish council unless dispensations were given to, in some cases, half the council over all sorts of things like burial plots in the churchyard and things like that. Because otherwise you couldn't discuss the churchyard at any council meeting because you would have nobody, you wouldn't be quorate.
I'll look into it, because it may be that you'll need to do them for the QVH.
Can I, just on the museum trust, I mean, it's maybe not strictly on the agenda, but if I could just say very briefly, obviously I was chairing the museum trustees as mayor last year. I had a few conversations with them about their updating their terms of reference, their charter, or I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, which needs to be done, but it's not urgent, it needs to be done before next year. One of the things they repeatedly asked for is trying to get some sort of consistency in terms of their representation within Oundle Town Council. So their revised terms are suggesting that whoever is appointed as trustees next year, for a period of 4 years, whatever happens in terms of movement, changes in the council. Obviously, people can still resign, but the expectation is that it will last for 4 years. So, sorry, not strictly on the agenda, but just so as you're aware, because obviously you're now taking over that role.
Well, no, just on that question, are we obliged to change our representation now?
Well, at the moment, help me out, someone. the document that defines who the trustees are says it'll be the mayor, the deputy mayor, and 2 other councillors. So, of course, every time the mayor and deputy mayor changes, they change trustees. So, essentially, they've got 100% turnover of trustees every from the town council side every 12 months. Now, in practice, it's not been anything like that. It's nowhere near as big a turnover. But what they're trying to do is to establish a bit more consistency.
Which makes sense to serve a 4-year term, so that when you're elected at the start of, like we should have been this year, but we will be in 2020. There will be an election. Councillors elected who then opt to go on the museum trust will then stay on for the 4-year term they're trustees for. And one person will chair it throughout, irrespective of whether or not they're mayor, how many terms of office they serve as mayor in that time, which may only be one, usually is one. So that's one of the changes they're suggesting. I'm currently working on the new document for the trustees, the new trust document. I'm currently working on it because the one that was drawn up 25 years ago, nearly 25 years ago, by Councillor Chappell is now...
The initial one we did was just over 25 years ago, because it was just over the 25th, which I drew up, and then we changed it, varied it, because it had, in addition to the 4 councillor representatives from 4 other bodies. two of which subsequently ceased to exist,
Okay.
or at least one stopped wanting to be involved and the other ceased to exist.
That's right.
So we altered it so that the remaining two bodies basically put two on each.
Well, the other two come from their management committee.
Yeah. So I'm aware this is not an agenda item, but it's
It's
a
just-
healthy
yes,
discussion.
yeah,
It's good
Yeah.
background.
Understand the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe when we finish this meeting, we have another short discussion about it and just see if there's a way through that.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that there's other conversations taking place about the museum, and their need for long-term lease and so on, which are not the agenda item here at the moment.
Yeah.
This is purely about an exhibition costs for next year, for the 2020. And
We
they're
must-
asking for £1,000.
We must consider that on estates at some stage within this next year, preferably in the first
Yeah, and
half
that's why
of
I'm
this year.
not sort of well aware that it can't be a conversation at the moment.
No.
We are looking for a business plan that the
that's-
trustees promised.
It's one of the things we've been promised now for about 15 months, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk purely about the £1,000 towards the 2020 exhibition, which is on the proposal here. So the other
Historically, we seem to give them £1,000 every year, presumably to similar functions. So,
Tends to be for the project.
I can't see major contributions from elsewhere other than Amble Town Council, so they're doing well finding the rest of the money elsewhere. So without more ado, I'd like to propose
yeah, okay.
£1,000.
I'll second it.
Seconder. All those in favour?
Yeah.
There you go. Right, Amble Twinning.
What's it do?
Yes, I agree with you. This looks like a jolly for a few people, basically.
I'm less inclined to the wording that you used.
Okay.
But I do appreciate the question of what they do, and so I went through the document, saw what they were proposing. It's a relatively small amount. I haven't opened it up yet. What was it?
Not very much.
250.
Well, I'll take that back, but I
No,
suppose
it's straightforward. What do they do? Yes.
my concern is that whatever they do, it doesn't seem to be well known in the town or come back to us. So I'm not sure what benefit for the town gets out of it.
Oh, no, did go on a trip.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
anniversary last year.
yeah,
Oh, you did, didn't you?
we did. It was not just myself. We had 3 representatives from
Yeah.
Andal who visited Andrassy to celebrate their anniversary of their twinning with their German twin. I mean, yeah, I do have some sympathy with the comment you made. Really, is that it's a relatively small group of people. I mean, this specific exchange where the German group and the Andal group go on their alternate year visits. It's a very specific group of people, isn't it? Really, I mean, it's not generally known about or appreciated by the rest of the town, I would suggest. And equally, the trip, I mean, there was no cost to, I should hasten to add, there was no cost to Andal Town Council, to council taxpayers or anyone else from the trip that we went to Andrassy. The members of the delegation who went, myself, Gwen and Patricia, all paid their own costs, so there was no cost to the taxpayer. And we were very happy to do it on that basis, which kind of begs the question, why would we give money to this group to do the same thing effectively?
Well, no, sorry, Councillor Stagg.
I have no objection that it's a small group of people. I don't think that's an issue. If we were talking about it 4 times a year at council meetings or in estates or in somewhere other than something like this, I can't see what the other people are gaining from that.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
In Europe,
That's all.
Well, certainly when, sorry.
If you go back historically, and I hesitate to do it, but just really to remind the councillors, when twinning first started in the town, the council was very anxious to say that it would not cost the town money. And by and large, save for the odd grant here and there, it hasn't. What's also true is that sadly, the organisation seemed to kind of fall away. I mean, we used to have representatives who went, they then were reporting back to us that nothing seemed to be happening. I believe, though I may be misinformed, that at one time there was some sort of a eruption and some sort of a split within the organisation itself. And so to some extent I was quite encouraged to see an application, because it sort of suggested to me that perhaps it's getting itself back up and running again in a more appropriate fashion. The question, I suppose, is whether, that being so, we want to support it in order to try and encourage it to involve us and keep us informed and keep the town informed, or whether in an effort to try and do that we actually indicate that we would prefer to support some different project, whatever that different project was, that perhaps benefited, for example, school children in Oundle specifically in a twinning context. Now, it is a relatively small sum of money when all said and done, so I would certainly be prepared to support it, but I do feel that we need to try and engage with these people, but it's a two-way street. They need to engage with us, and I think that if we made this effort and it didn't happen, I would be much more critical if they came back and asking for further grants in subsequent years.
My experience of twinning, very limited, goes back to my youth, I suppose, when I was at school, and it was very active, the Twinning Association there. And I went on a school rugby trip to Breathe and things like this, you know, playing rugby. I would have thought that's the sort of thing they should be aiming at. Not just a couple of people going out, saying hello and coming back again, which is, seems to be what's going on at the moment. So I don't know how we can get involved and help focus it.
It does. It has a very mixed reputation, you know, twinning. I'm minded to keep the £250 back and use it on a specific issue. If the German team, the German town comes over here, you know, there's a contribution that Oundle Town Council can make, you know, at that point in time, rather than just put it into a fund. Because likewise, you know, the French, sorry, what's the name of the French town? Andrecy. You know, if they came back over here, I'm sure we'd have to do some hospitality for them. You know, so, you know, just keep the money available for a specific function rather than put it into a pot.
Or maybe we get the people from the twinning here and say, listen, we're not terribly happy with the direction this is going. Can you tell us something specific that you're going to achieve in this following year that will benefit us and them?
Yeah.
My own view is I would have rather paid for somebody to go there if they're going to talk to Andrecy and, you know, what is it, about what they're doing that we ought to be doing as a council. Or not.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrecy are very keen to, you know, foster the
Continue,
links.
yes,
They were really very much, you know, coming back to us and saying, what are you, you know, coming back to us and saying, what are you going to do to try and make sure this relationship is nourished and
what did we do?
well, nothing.
Like Councillor Simon.
Looking at this details of community project for which financial assistance is required, in alternating years they visit the German twin of Oundle and entirely at their own members' expense. But then they go on to say they're doing that this year, and then in 2020 the Germans will come to Oundle and they want this application to help to fund that. Well, that's 2020. This is the 2019-2020 financial year, so if it's in the early part, if it's in this financial year, then yes, I can see why they're applying for it now. Otherwise, they really need to be applying for it next year when they do have the visit, when they'll probably know more about their costs. But the only thing I see attached here is their income and expenditure for the year ending 31st December 2018, and it's not twinning with anybody, it's a trip to Warwick Castle by the looks of
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
I presume that means they took people from one of our twin towns,
I think-
rather than they themselves visited
I think
Warwick.
that's what they mean, yeah.
Yeah,
They
they
would have
haven't
been the
specifically said that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But it would have been the German visitors here instead.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have an article in the Oracle.
If that's the case, they're not promoting Oundle,
Right.
taking them to Warwick. It's promoting Warwick. Sorry to say. I know Warwick's a lovely place. No, I'm not proposing to build a castle. And they'll never do that for £250.
Reinstate
I
what
think
they want.
the point that Councillor Glenn made there is very relevant, is the fact, you know, that an article for the Oracle, you know, there are maybe 2 throughout the year saying what's going on, is what's missing here.
Yeah.
The other thing I've got in my mind is the creation of an obligation on us, you know, and you know, if they're going to Germany to visit and their Germans coming back here and they're asking for something reciprocal, what is it we're committed in them going to Germany? You know, so if they went to Germany and the town had a big feast for them, you know, are they signing us up to providing a big feast when they come back? You know, so we just need to be very careful on what we've let loose here.
Yes.
Well, it's no doubt that the way that they treat twinning, both in our French twin and I suspect in our German twin, I've only been to Andrassy, but when I went as mayor, it was positively embarrassing. You know, I was feted, I was marched up the street with fanfares and you name it, I was showered with this, that and the other, and of course I'd literally gone, I had no idea, and brought a present for the mayor. Which, you know, so
I mean,
I actually would pick up on Councillor Stagg's point. Why can't we invite them to attend the next FGP for a short presentation and let them sell themselves to us and let us make clear what we would like from them? That must include things like contributing to the Oracle or what have you. And then maybe we'd look more favourably on it. And we've got time because, as Councillor Sparks points out, they seem to be talking about a 2020 visit anyway.
Yeah.
Should you invite them to a finance meeting?
I think full council.
They could be full council in that a week.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do we have anybody on their committee?
I think we did actually elect somebody as
Do we?
well.
I can't
Meeting,
remember.
but I forget who it was.
I think it might
No, I think we did on the meeting,
Might be
last
you.
council
it's
meeting.
me, yeah.
Positive there.
But I mean,
Is it you? You might be.
but I mean, you know, I think this kind of illustrates the point, doesn't it? Really, which is that you know there are individual people who have got close ties to Andrassy. So Gwen, in particular, has got close links to the town and knows people there very well. You've got other people who've got better links with Noart, the German town, and you know it's very much on a sort of a. It seems to be very much on a personal relationships footing at the moment, rather than it being a sort of a town activity. So, yeah.
Yeah, because it is complicated. I think, to some extent, these guys think they're working on behalf of the town, and they are, because they're publicising us. But, when it comes down to making an obligation, then we need to be extremely careful.
I've never been to Noart, but I think there is a bit of a mismatch between the sort of the resources that Oundle has and Andrassy has. So Andrassy is is quite a big town with a politically elected mayor with a big budget, whereas we're a little parish basically.
How did we ever get twinned with them in the first place?
Well,
Councillor Chapel, were you the mayor at that time?
Well, I actually signed the twinning charters with both, as it happened.
Yeah.
It just happened to be mayor in both years that it happened.
No, so remember, we had a bit of a celebration in the Queen Victoria Hall, didn't we?
Yeah.
When they came over.
So, yes, I've done my time, as it were, with that. But it is a relationship we need to rebuild.
Okay. So we need to invite them to a full council meeting then, okay? There's another agenda item.
Yeah, I'll try and get them
We've
for
just got
this
into the
one.
deadline.
Yeah.
Okay. Received the internal audit report. What a glowing document this was.
Wasn't it?
Okay. Well done, Emma.
Yes, I mean, the agenda says consider any actions. There weren't any actions recommended, were there?
Well, there is
There's
just
a
one,
few
there's
for-
this VAT issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so no.
There's an amount of VAT that Paul and I have had an initial look, and we think it goes back a considerable time. It doesn't change our quarterly returns or anything, but it just seems to be sitting there. So
What do you mean sitting there?
in the accounts, and it's there when at the moment, let me have a look. It's an amount of money that's showing in the period trial balance. So like I say, it doesn't affect our return, it doesn't affect the accounts, but it just means that when you want to balance what the annual return was at the end of March with the period trial balance, it doesn't balance. So she suggested we have a look, but she said don't
Right, she-
spend too much time.
Yeah, well, specifically, she said you can amend the balance by creating a journal on the account system to correct the mismatch, and she's
Yeah.
advised you not to spend too much time on it. This could be historically, it's not significant. So I mean,
I know, but it's
I mean-
difficult when you want to find it.
yeah, but I mean, if you know, I would suggest you do what she's
Yeah.
recommended,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, I
is
agree.
don't spend too much time on it,
Yeah.
and if you can't find it easily, just stick a journal
We've had
entry.
an initial look,
Stick a journal entry in
Yeah.
there to correct it,
Yeah.
and it's gone.
and we think it could go right back to about 2003.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, which is way beyond
Yeah.
anything that's
Yeah.
relevant. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
So, sorry, go
I
on.
would like to put on record that the auditor gave Emma and her staff a glowing report.
Yeah,
Yes, I think we should do.
yeah.
You weren't relieved when she did that. You just took it for granted, didn't you?
Yeah, I just thought, well, that's Jeff.
Very good.
All right, that's the easy stuff. Now tell us about scanning the graveyard. Did we ask for this, or did they just come
No,
along?
I did it. No, I actually instigated it
Right.
because I'm quite concerned with this.
Right.
This is our only record of what the cemetery currently looks like and where the graves are.
Yeah.
And as you can see, it's getting very old, it's getting very faded.
So I'm just writing in and...
If we had a fire, it would be gone.
Yeah, really, you can photograph it and file it, you know, so easy enough.
But there are ways of mapping it, and I'm not just thinking about this, I'm thinking about potentially if we get this
New extension, yeah.
extra piece of land.
Mm.
And if you get a moment, if you go onto Higham Town Council's website, they've actually, you can go onto their website, you can search for a deceased person, and it'll put you straight to where it is.
How many times a year do you ask, somebody ask you where a deceased person
Quite a few, quite a lot,
is? Yeah.
yeah. 2 or 3 of them.
Wow.
Well, lots of people are doing more of this, you know,
Sure.
geology,
Yeah.
looking back at the history.
But it's not just about that. I mean, it's not just about securing that data. It's about makes it easier. I mean, we've had to take that up to the cemetery with the funeral directors, and they just laugh at us when you're trying to find something.
The girls have told me recently that they went to look at a plot which they thought was spare, only to find somebody was already there.
Yeah.
So the records on there are not
They're
particularly
not,
accurate.
yeah. But also we've got issues where, like you can see on this one, we've got various trees. So when you go up there and find the trees,
Yeah.
you then try and find where the grave, where the space is, but the trees aren't right. You know, it's not to scale, whereas if we had them to scale, it would be better. But not only do this company do this, we can map all sorts of things. Like we can map all our flood areas. We can map all of our land, all of our trees, all of our lamps, our dog bins, everything.
We certainly need more detailed records of the cemetery. I don't know if the girls have mentioned to you that I was asking the other day, following the British Legion meeting last Monday, where the subject of war graves came up, and we were talking about when we have commemorations, and we've got quite a few this year because it's major anniversaries of things like D-Day, which we've just had, and other major battles, and the commencement of World War II is the 80th anniversary is on 3rd of September, as well as the Armistice service in November, and we were talking about, as well as a wreath at the War Memorial, marking something on those graves, even if it's a small wooden cross or something. And I said I would talk to the girls in the office and find out if we got a record of where the war graves were, how many there were, and specifically where they were. Now the only way they can trace them is by going back through some other records they've got.
Yeah, we've got an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's it. And then going through, if you know the name, or you can search on certain things like Royal Artillery or something like that, then you can find them. Otherwise, you haven't got a hope of finding them.
So what's the total cost?
Well,
I was confused about that. It seems to be a long list of costs.
these are different things. I mean, there's a lot of different things here. There's the software, which is also costed out the software for if we want to map other things as well. So not just the cemetery.
So there's one cost for just doing the cemetery, or
Yeah.
there's another cost if we have our own software and we can do what we like. Is that correct?
Well, no, they give you the software, but if we say, right, we now want to start mapping
Yeah.
where the flood
Yeah.
area is, then they obviously train you and help you and show you how you can mark it on.
That's quite a big job, mapping.
I mean, if you get a chance, have a look. Bournes have just,
Okay.
Bournes Town Council have just, I don't think they've got anything up and running yet, but they're looking at mapping out their flooding areas. And Higham have done their cemetery, and that is quite good to go and have a look.
Is this something that, sorry,
Now, Karen.
is this something that is specific to these people, or is it other companies could offer it? 'Cause it's quite a lot of money. Do we need competitive?
The other one that I know about is Parish Online, but now I think, as far as I gather from the lady who came, they are now working together with Parish Online, so I think they've joined.
Is it something modular where we can buy one bit this year and another bit another year?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we
you
can
just
do
cemetery,
cemetery
yeah.
as an urgent matter, do it now, together with the support, technical support, together with training and installation.
Yeah.
But then add mapping for other council areas next year, and other bits and bobs as we need them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cemetery, from our point of view, we feel that we need to have something that's a little bit more secure than that map there.
Okay. So we need a cost of just doing the cemetery.
We shouldn't be using that with no backup. I mean, God's sake, I'm an antediluvian in all things digital, and even I know we shouldn't be using that. Plus, at the estates meeting, there were 2 or 3 items, I can't remember what. Certainly, I didn't know we got responsible for lights. I had no idea we were responsible for the fence posts that we're going to have to replace around St Peter's. All that sort of stuff could be on it. So I see a huge plus for something like this. A huge plus.
Yeah, that's what it's for. I mean, if we can map everything that we're responsible for, it helps us so much when somebody rings up and says, lighting, whatever, close, we can just go straight on and say, well, that's not us, and it'll be numbered, and we'll, so from that point of view, it would help.
My only objection is where the money coming from.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because that's why it's here, because you haven't got a budget for this sort of thing at the moment.
That again is why I say we do it piecemeal and do the cemetery, because it's an urgent thing. Needs doing straight away. I think if you try and tackle the whole thing, I think you'll learn from doing the cemetery. I think once you learn from doing the cemetery, you might find there are several ways of identifying the same data and storing it. And then when you come to do the rest of the stuff, like the lights and the posts and everything and fences and what have you, you find which method you want to use. So doing it in stages, I think, is probably the best way to go.
I put a word of caution on doing it in stages. As much as when you make the first step, you're committing to that particular software, and that's the major point. I think before we take the first step, we really do need to make sure that we're happy with this software, because we will be forever committed to it. It's like I don't know who we go to for due diligence on this particular commitment.
I mean, the only other people that I could think of was Parish Online or going to Ordnance Survey.
Yeah, but I don't mean against a company, but who could tell us that this is robust and sound?
Well,
Sorry, it was Councillor Clark's first one.
I think what we need to do is to have a demonstration of it, and B, have the staff try it. And I dread saying the word, but we had something called, was it Hallmaster?
Yes.
Which
Can't say it.
turned out to be a disaster.
Almost a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I can speak to the clerk at Higham.
Sorry, I was just going to say, was it Higham or Rawns that you said?
Higham, I've already had a quick conversation with Kate just to find out what they at Rawns to find out what they've.
And is this software?
It's this, yeah.
It is this.
And I know of others, so I can speak to lots of other councils. I think Higham, I don't think Rawns have got theirs up and running yet. Higham, I think, is relatively new, but I can speak to the people that have had it for a while. I mean, this company's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Pair Technology ought to put you in touch with some people who have been using it.
Yeah.
But they need to try it, they need to go on it, try it, and then say, ask the questions of the people who are demonstrating it, saying, how does it do this, how does it do that, what about if this happens, what about if that happens, and think of all the contingencies they can.
I mean, we had a little demonstration when she came, Lucy and I. The only thing with that is you can have a demonstration, but it's until you're looking at your own data.
I think it's
and then by then they'll have had to have done that for us to be in that situation.
what's much more valuable than listening to them, I think, is going and seeing another council who's got it.
Yeah.
So,
First question, what problem do you have?
yeah. I mean, because you want to hear the warts and all still. We don't even someone who's actually gone through it. That's.
I mean, my idea. I mean, I didn't realise she was going to give me full costs. I just really wanted to get your view on whether you thought this would be a good idea or something to think about or not.
So we need a cost on doing the first stage, which means buying the software and then mapping out the cemetery according to these costs.
Yeah, so there's mapping out in the cemeteries at £1,200, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you've got 450 and so on. So you're up at £2,000.
Yeah.
Or over £2,000, yeah.
It's a big commitment.
It's a bit of party pooper, but since we are a finance committee, we're already in the red on the cemetery. And we're
Yeah, because we
And
bought
what's
some
into the
benches
year?
down there at the
So,
last estates meeting. So.
even if we knock it down to £2,000, it's still
But if you
another
looked at
£2,000
it,
in the
it
red.
wasn't coming out of your cemetery budget because it's actually an administrative way of storing data. You could potentially say that it's not necessarily coming out of that. It could be coming out of our IT stroke website stroke this, that and the other budget. It's got a little bit more in it.
Well said.
It's going to be used for a lot more than the cemetery, so you can spread that cost, I
Yeah.
think, across.
Can I
Broad
also
jobs.
suggest that if that literally is the only information we've got, we could back it up. We could get a camera and take.
We've probably tried it. We've done it with the iPad. And
Well, I'll bring a proper digital SLR up, and I'll take some proper pictures
try and
of it.
zoom in, you just can't.
Yeah, well, you bring a proper camera up and photograph half a dozen pictures of it. At least then we'll have that.
This is
Nothing
not a
else.
permanent solution, but
If you do drop it in the cemetery and it gets eaten by a fox or something.
you don't want to be munching over to kind of work out what grades, what there. So yeah, let's get take
But I'll in the
Tony's offer
meantime,
there.
I'll speak to a few of the councils and I'll get more of a breakdown on just cemetery
Yeah.
costs.
So for me, it's much easier to buy, software and this type of stuff when you know that you're going to have a labour saving by having it.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
we can't put a labour saving on the table for having this, then we've got to do this slow approach to it.
What it would do is it would prevent when we get a call from the funeral director or a member of the public
Mm.
and they ask about a particular grade that they've already got reserved.
Yeah.
We look on the map, we can't quite find it exactly. Lisa has to go up to the cemetery. I mean, she a couple of times a week walks that cemetery looking for a variety of different things.
Would you be allowed to put that online?
Deceased, you can. I don't think you can't put grave spaces that
Order your plot
are
online?
being reserved for people that are still alive.
So once again,
If you could put that on, but like obviously we've got reserve spaces on there. But
oh, you can't, well, okay,
But you can still mark them as being
you can
reserved.
still mark them,
oh yeah, they're just
and
marked.
put your airline tickets across that
But you
somebody's
wouldn't
got it, it
put
doesn't
people's
tell you.
details. But like the hire, you literally can put a name in, and it will just take you to wherever
Yeah.
that name is.
Okay.
Just to highlight that our cemetery system is well overdue for upgrading. That says on their new burial ground. we've now outgrown it. We're now going to have another new burial ground.
I was hoping that was trying to say the new business right there.
Okay, so a bit of due diligence.
Yeah, I'll just get a bit
forward.
more information.
And then in terms of where it goes back to then, is that going back to estates from there or?
Can do. I mean, it obviously depends on how much it's going to be, because if it's going to be over 2,000, then
I think that, estates seems to be its right home,
yeah,
doesn't
that's
it?
fine.
And then to take your point about, right, find the money somewhere.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that wasn't too bad then. Courthouse roof. It's a little worrying.
This is bad.
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
very worrying.
I thought we had repaired the courthouse.
Different side, completely different side.
It
This
seems to
is,
be never ending. It's like the
the one
Fort
benefit I will
Bridge.
say is that we have put aside £15,000 this year, next year, well, but we haven't approved next year's obviously. But in our budget, we have £15,000 in repairs and maintenance for the cemetery.
is that from last year? Carried over, or is that?
No, it's this year, courthouse, sorry, I didn't mean cemetery.
Yes.
Which I think was to
Collier
pay
West-
for a variety of different
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
painting windows, that sort of thing.
Boilers and new things go wrong.
But we, and I think we had some pictures taken with a drone. I've had a look, and although you can see where there's a bit of deterioration, these are taken from somebody who actually went on the roof to look at
Yeah.
some tiles and ceiling,
Yeah.
and then saw all of this. That is the neighbour. So you're going down Mill Road.
Mhm.
That's their chimney, and it's strapped to our chimney with just a steel band about that much. That is actually twisting. I don't know when that happened and how that happened, because I'm sure we would have strapped our chimney to theirs.
So it's an entirely different
Why are
building.
you
Yeah.
Because it's separate,
Yes.
yeah. And the person who went upstairs, went up, had a look at it. But the issue is, obviously, whatever work needs to be done, we've got to see where these birds are nesting. This is the rafters, for what you could feel there, are rotten. But it also depends on how far it goes. So we need somebody to do a proper survey inside the roof,
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, of course.
but there will be, because it's all on this side,
Yeah.
it's where would you put the scaffolding, because it's obviously going to have to be,
It's easy once you knock that chimney down, isn't it?
yeah. So I just think we've got to have somebody go up and do a proper look inside
Sounds like
there.
it to me, yeah.
How much do they need for the survey?
We haven't got any costs at all
All right.
for that.
So this doesn't look like anything that can wait long, because we can't wait for
No.
another finance committee meeting, so the council
Get the estimates and put it to full council as soon as we've got them.
What we have done at the estates committee meeting, we approved the new tenants. They're both on this side, and we've actually said to them that we may have to do some work on the roof.
Yes.
So we've delayed that, because if we move them in and then we've got to get them out. And there was, when Nobby was decorating one of the rooms, there was a small damp patch. I mean, I'm surprised that we haven't got.
Well, this last
Well,
couple
looking
of
at
days.
So yeah, we're going to go and check just to see what's
Right,
going on
yes.
in this room.
So is there a temporary repair we can put in there to stop the water going through? Because the size of that hole there is just coming straight.
I don't know. I just don't know how we're not getting leaks. I really don't. I don't know where the water's going.
So personally on this one, I don't think we wait for a council meeting to decide whether we get up there and have a look at it.
I don't think you're going to get a quote for somebody to go up there and have a look and see how much damage you've got to your roof. I've just got to call a few people. I mean, the little building company that Stu's going with, they do a lot of work at Collie Western Tiles. They said we don't mind going up and having a look and see what.
Yeah.
What, free of charge?
Well, okay, what they charge, I'm feeling
no,
we
no,
need
no.
to patch this thing up.
But if it's over £2,000, then we should go to council.
Well, no, yeah.
So it won't be, I suppose.
Well, if it's 2,000, then between myself and the men, if it's, I mean, I do think
Okay.
we shouldn't necessarily leave this.
No, I agree. No.
Now we know about it, because obviously if a ceiling falls in on our current tenants that's in there,
Yeah.
it's not very
Not
good.
No.
How many people are we going to ask to go and have a look?
Now we've got this other company that have said, we're also going to probably, whoever's working on, what's that? The head, Oundle School head house, you know, where they're doing all that work. We're probably going to see if we can ask them.
Yeah.
And then one other that we haven't decided yet, just got to go.
Okay.
And then I suppose whatever we find will depend on, because it's listed, we'll have to speak to
Yeah.
Lewis Mills as well, see what we've got to do.
Yeah, so I just feel that we need to do something to
Do you need a
patch that
proposal,
up,
do you?
because, yeah.
Do you need a proposal?
Just to say that you've authorised me to go ahead and go and
Yeah, okay.
ask you to have a look at it.
Sorry.
When was the last time we went onto the QVH roof?
Went on it.
Yeah.
I have got some drone pictures of it.
No, for somebody to inspect it.
It's not happened in my time. I don't know when it was refurbished, would it have been
Probably
looked at?
That was probably the last time that we actually did that.
Right, sorry.
Or when it was actually refurbished, and it must be going back a few years now.
I've got a couple of issues with this roof.
Well,
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
It was in the time when Val was mayor and I was head of estates that we looked at the roof, and we had some roofing repairs done then, which we thought was going to be the end of the story. But every year.
What was that, in the QVH?
Sorry?
Was that the QVH?
No, that was
Oh, the
courthouse.
courthouse. Well, I think that was that side that was then done last year,
Mm.
eventually.
So something came up at the estates, I've already alluded to it, the bollards, the lights, the cemetery. We got three things and suddenly we were out of budget for the year. Now that suggests to me two things. One, we're not doing regular checks on our estate. I'm not pointing any fingers because I sat on estates in the previous life, and blithely said, oh, 500 quid to sort out the cemetery this year. We've done that for the last 5 years, it'll be fine. Well, plainly comes a time when it's not fine. So Whether we got complacent or we haven't done the inspection well enough, I'm not quite sure, but it doesn't matter. But I think we need to get that up to date and a programme of better checking on these things, because that feeds into finance. And if suddenly we've got a big bill for the roof, God only knows what it might be, and we're scurrying around trying to find money from somewhere, when we should have put it in the budget if we'd have got our act together in the first place. I'd rather have some bad news in November, where we can get it in the budget, than in April or May, when it's suddenly kind of panic stations.
The only word of caution I'd have is that you can spend your life, doing inspections, and each time you do an inspection, you have to pay a man to do it.
Yeah.
So we do we do the courthouse, we're doing the Queen Vic's roof, we do this roof, and you do it every year.
Yeah.
And with the age of the buildings, you'll find something every time you go up there. So, I think rather than constant inspections, it's like you have a fund of money, and when something like this happens, you get up and fix it. But you can't continuously inspect, because you'll spend more on inspection than you do on repair. It's not cheap having these inspections carried out.
No, and if you get a problem, especially on a roof where there's water coming in, putting it off till next year shows how much you've got in your reserve.
I'm not talking about pulling it, but sometimes you just say fix on fail is probably the most cost-effective way to do it. But we just need to be fast. We found a hole in the roof here, and we shouldn't be having discussions about it. We should just fix the hole in the roof.
Sorry, how do we find this hole?
Because we've been, it's the other side of the archway, so it's the annex, and we're letting the 2 rooms upstairs. Lisa just happened to be in a small room showing somebody around, and looked out the window and she could just see 3 tiles had slipped. So we had somebody go up and check them, hope they were just going to put them back, and then as he walked around, took numerous pictures and said, "You've got a massive issue up here."
So, if I can finish my point, under your scheme there, fix when it's broken, we wait for a ceiling to cave in and probably get a bill from somebody because they can't use the office. Whereas we may have nipped it in the bud, and possibly, nobody knows, this is a judgment call. I have no idea how much these people cost to go up there and whether it will be cost effective. We might know in 10 years' time. But especially with the ingress of water, it won't get any better from tomorrow, and it won't be any better next week. In fact, it'll be worse.
I think it's difficult for this because obviously there's an issue, but it's like things like churches and things. They have a fund, don't they, for things that they know are going to be extremely expensive that they add to whenever they can. But that's probably what we should have, is a fund.
Yeah, I think that's
that
what
we
we
add
tried to do
into
in the
each
budget,
year.
wasn't it?
But it's difficult when we haven't got that fund and we've got this problem, but going forward, that's what we should have.
It was used to make, like I say, always. On many occasions, we have literally budgeted for a contingency fund, unallocated funds for just this sort of situation. And we tend to do it for a number of years, and then if it doesn't get used for about 3 or 4 years, somebody says, "Why are we doing this?" And it stops, and then we go on for 3 or 4 years and there isn't a problem, and then we're back where we are tonight. I have to say, I think I meant to take Councillor Stagg's point that we have a known issue because we actually own a number of buildings of some vintage, and this sort of problem is vaguely predictable. And whilst perhaps you wouldn't necessarily be doing a survey every year, can't help but look at the next item on the agenda, which says 3-year plan, and one might have thought that part of a 3-year plan would be that in any 1 year you look at Old Fletton, another year you look at QVH, and another year you look at the courthouse, because we have 3 major buildings and they just happen to fit into a 3-year cycle. And I think you probably should budget to have some form of inspection carried out. Just would have to.
And there's also for Jonestown.
Yes, it's a slightly different proposition.
The people who do the inspections once they've done the inspection, then they may ask the question, when do we next inspect it? Now, I know they've got a vested interest, so if they say, you know, every week for 52 weeks, well, we can keep them in touch, but if they come up with something that sounds sensible,
Yes, yeah.
you know, we may look at to give them some sort of contract to do it every, I don't know what it's going to be, but I think we certainly need to get a better control of the whole thing than we've got now.
The, excuse me, the drone pictures didn't show any of this damage.
You
I'm
have to
surprised at
really,
that, yeah.
where this is,
Yeah.
you have to sort of, I mean, it's not anything like this on any of the pictures of the drones. I've been and had a look. It does depend on exactly whereabouts they are. I mean, you can zoom in and
Yes.
you can have a look. That was done in 2018.
Mm.
There's nothing that shows this, so I would say that this is possibly, I don't know. It looks like it's fairly old, but you can't see anything like that on any of the pictures of the courthouse room.
So if this happened in the last year, you wouldn't have picked it up in a 3-year cycle anyway. Inspections.
But I suppose it takes something like this. We get somebody's going. We know that. I mean, one half of the roof we've had sorted out,
Yes.
which is like over on the chamber
Yeah, I
side.
remember that. I remember
This is
Bill.
now the other side and round the corner. It's a particular area that you just can't see unless you're up there on the roof and you're wandering around taking pictures. Unfortunately.
Okay, so just in the proposal on the table, then is Emma goes away and gets them.
Gets.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody comes back to me and says we'll go up and have a look for nothing, you're happy
yes.
to, you don't want me to go and ask 3 different people for that.
There are not many people in the area that can cope with Collie Western,
No.
is that all? So we won't have much choice.
No.
And I know from trying to get hold of one of them to do some work for me, he's got plenty of work on. He's not going to nip off the ladder for you, so anybody you can get up there.
Well, luckily the people that were supposed to be moving into the room are quite, because they want to move in, they're quite keen to say we'll help you.
See what they do.
There's a scaffolding job to get up there properly.
It'll be, I think they can get up, because the other person got up on a ladder and walked round.
Can't use a cherry picker or something to get up there.
No, it'll be getting in from the inside as well. There is a hatch that we think they can get in and see, so it shouldn't be
We don't need a
too
vote on that one, do we?
I don't, well, you just authorised me to
Yes,
get
okay.
it. I'm not, nobody's doing the work,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Could I also ask then, in that photograph, you have a word with those neighbours about that chimney of theirs? It
Yeah.
does look ridiculous. You've all seen the pictures of it. It doesn't look like it was safe from day one. They probably don't use it, so.
Probably not even aware of it, the people there now.
No.
But yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So on to the other issue we just raised there with the 3-year plan.
Yeah, I mean, this has been put on because I think we initially did say that you wanted to put it on this agenda, although I don't know
Well, I thought
whether,
it was going to go on to the estates.
whether it
agenda,
was
but-
then going to move to states,
Yeah,
but because I wasn't quite sure, I thought I'd put it on this
yeah,
one.
okay. I couldn't find it in my pack.
I
No,
don't
I've
think I
got it.
sent it to you, but I think you
Oh.
probably have previously.
Yes.
Because I only printed my own out today.
Okay,
But you have all had it, many a time.
there we have.
Mm.
So that's that then.
Well, it's hard to talk about it if we haven't got it in front of us.
Exactly.
But, and I would like to give them a bit more. So, I have it in front of me, nobody else does. How do you think it's best to deal with this? Because we have talked about it putting over to estates, but it is more than estates.
I think, haven't we said previously that we ought to ask estates to put it forward to finance on a quarterly basis?
Right.
Yes, we say
Exactly those words, yeah.
to say, either it needs amending, it isn't fit for purpose or whatever,
Yeah.
and then for this committee to agree or disagree with that recommendation.
Yes.
So estates really should have it on and
Yes.
regular
But
basis.
it's
But what-
a classic, isn't it? It needs someone to take a bit of ownership, doesn't it? And actually do a bit of work before the meeting, so they can come along with something as a proposal.
Oh, we're coming through their areas, you know, it'd be nice if your staff could, you know, get what they think should be in the plan. Yeah, so the estates can then review it. Yeah.
Well, you want us to do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Right, okay, because
So
I think you and councillor Staff did it before, didn't you?
well, we kick it off, but it's now, you know, just trying to move this into a staff role. As to say
Oh,
what
right,
the-
okay, yeah, well,
what
that's-
the plan is, you know, and then say, you know, you need the money. or
That's
this is-
fine, we,
Yeah.
right, I'll take it back then.
Oh, no, you're right, I mean, when you say that's fine.
Well, okay, there's all sorts of things that we can put in here.
Yeah, there are. But you know, it's just to move it in,
You-
you know,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
the plan, this is where we're going forward, is this okay with you?
Mhm.
Because, you know, I feel like the last 6 months, you know, that we've had this thing on and, you know, we're only giving it lip service at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't look at it, if I'm honest, I only put it on because I thought you were looking at it, so.
Well, I don't think it's a plan, I think it's a financial reaction, there's nothing planning about this. And I've just had a quick look today, and there's some items I can't see under budget to marry up with what we put in the 3-year plan.
Okay.
So straight away we're
Yes, yeah, we did the two
off
documents.
piste.
Yeah, quite right.
Sorry, I lost track of that, what's going to happen with it next?
Well, I had originally put that it's going to come to finance for every quarter but go to estates, but now as staff, we're going to manage it
Yeah, and bring it to estates.
and then bring it to estates.
Just next week, isn't it?
Yeah,
No, not next week.
yeah,
Not,
but yeah, I can.
but to the next cycle of estates, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Emma, if you
I
want
need
to
to
come and spend some
familiarise,
time. time
myself with it, and
Oh, give me a shout when you want to sit down with it.
yes, I will do.
Come over. Just to note that the next item is a special confidential nature of business about to be transacted. It's advisable the public interest that the public be temporarily excluded and they are instructed to withdraw and stand in order. 3-6. Happy with that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. All in favour?
Proposed it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right, okay. So back in full session. So Emma, help me with the wording we're just going to approve now.
We've received the update on
Yes.
the repayment of the outstanding invoices.
All right. That's it, just a receipt. Any other business or report only?
I have one.
Yes.
We have had, we think possibly fraudulent payments taken out of our bank account via direct debits. We had 2 go to BT for £5 and 1 to Hudson's Energy Limited for 271. NatWest have given us it back. It's out of the NatWest account,
Okay.
and it's gone to their fraud squad.
Okay.
Well spotted there.
Yes.
It was difficult because obviously we've changed energy group, so we thought it was to do with that to start with.
You said direct debit.
Yeah.
Is that? I didn't know that was possible.
Apparently, if you've got somebody's bank details, you can set up a direct debit.
Oh, okay.
And apparently what people do is they set up small amounts.
Yeah.
See if you notice
Yes.
it. I mean, obviously they're being cancelled, so they're not good. They take small amounts. If you don't notice it for a few times, then they'll hit you for a big one.
Wow.
Gosh.
Yeah, so well spotted there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have NatWest paid up because it's a direct debit?
NatWest just gave us money straight away within an hour. I mean, I know it's a very small amount. 2 were for BT and 1 was Hudson's Energy. I think they're based in Milton Keynes.
It is one of the better parts of the direct debit guarantee, that they will give it you back.
Right.
Presumably, isn't it?
Unlike if you use your debit card in an account,
Yes.
then you won't get it back.
Yes.
Presumably there'll be an address associated with those accounts, you
Well,
think?
yeah, I mean, this is
Yeah.
what I said. You know, I mean, the banks say so much about, you know, checking emails, checking this, checking that, and you think, well, how does that just get straight into the bank? And then they just take it straight out of our account.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm supposed to sign it.
To go
But then I
home and
suppose
check
that-
my accounts.
Yeah, look for little amounts from unusual places.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all then.
Anything else?
Meeting closed. 9:15.